Hey Candice, I've got a burning question for you.
What is this question?
Have you seen the movie Ratatouille?
I have.
And what was one of the things that they said in that movie?
Everyone can cook?
Everyone can cook, right? And you just reminded me of that a few minutes ago. And I think it's a perfect lead in to our conversation today about everybody can lead from where they are, right? You don't need a title. You don't need to have, somebody to say you're a manager, that you're in charge of this thing in order to lead. So I wanted to dive in a little bit to this concept of leading from where you are and some of our experience throughout our careers of how we've led, and then some other examples of how other people have led from where they are without having that fancy title.
That sounds great. Can you give us all kind of a definition to work with when you talk about leadership?
Yeah, so I think leadership is one of these sort of amorphous concepts that people throw around, I think maybe a little bit too much. But when I think of leadership, it is really, it involves a few things. It involves influencing a group of people towards a common goal. Like at the end of the day, that's what leadership is, right? I suppose you can lead yourself. And people talk about self-leadership and everything. To me, that's more like self-management. To me, leadership has this sort of communal aspect to it. That there's a set of people that you are trying to influence towards a common goal.
I would push back a little bit because I do think, self-awareness and leading oneself is a thing. But I'll let you cook. Go ahead.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks for letting me cook. I'm maybe not the greatest cook in the world, but I'm serviceable. I'm probably a better leader than I am a cook. Maybe I'll say it this way, that I think the best kinds of leadership are collaborative, right?
Okay. That I can get on board with.
So let's do it that way. And so I want to kind of dive in and just get into the details of what we've seen as really good examples of leadership from people that don't necessarily have that responsibility by their title. Do you have any examples?
I do. I mean, first I'll talk about a personal example that I experienced. So there was probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I was in a position, maybe 8 years ago, where I had I didn't supervise anybody. Not that you need to supervise anyone or manage anyone to lead, but I missed that piece of being able to help others. I really pour myself into my staff in terms of coaching them and helping them accomplish their goals. And I missed that piece. So it was also around the time where I just felt like I had more time. So with the Women in Technology group, we started a peer coaching and mentorship program. And so people apply, they get partnered up. And it was one of those ways that I could lead and I could empower and do all of these things without having a title. I could do that at a peer coaching level. I could do that for a mentee-mentor relationship. And I really think that was a great example. It's something that continues now to this day. Every fall, we have a program and people are able to mentor and coach each other. So
yeah, and so you had this idea and you ran with it. And you may have gotten a couple of partners in that to go with it, but nobody
said, hey, Candice.
Nobody said, Candice, do this, or Candice, you're allowed to do this. You just did it.
Send an email
and that to me is like this perfect example of how to lead from wherever you are. If you have an idea and you see a gap in something, there is a need on campus to have more mentorship of emerging leaders. And so you decided that you were going to do this and you just ran with it. That's a great example of leadership. I think there are multiple other examples on our campus that are similar to that, right? There's a colleague of ours, Jen Sterner. She started up a help desk community of practice where all of the help desk managers from around campus are part of this community of practice. And she's really run with that to help maybe standardize some of our approaches to customer service on this campus and make sure that we're all doing things in similar ways so that our faculty, staff, and students have similar experiences when they interact with us, that we're building up the skill sets of all of our help desk managers around campus in sort of equitable ways. There's that example. There's you're part of the Women in Technology group, which you just mentioned. Like that itself was You
We
know,
didn't need any blessing. I
you didn't,
remember
yeah.
Jackie Kern go ahead and saying, "Hey, we should just kind of meet over at Cranard," and then it grew from there. It's just so.
Yeah, and so there's all kinds of examples of those communities popping up. Do you have other examples?
So yeah, I have other examples. This one isn't necessarily related just to work. It's professional, but at the same time, it's idea and concept that I wanted to mention. It's kinetic leadership.
Okay.
So I think that everybody has leadership potential, whether how unorganized or scatterbrained it may be, but sometimes it just needs to be channeled and developed and funneled into one type of thing. And so kinetic leadership is leadership in motion. It's the person that kind of gets people past the thinking stage and into the doing stage. They kind of give you that ability to kind of get the ball rolling, and then they watch it through to completion. And one of the things that I noticed when I was in undergrad, when this topic was realized to me, is sometimes you just need the right people with that energy to kind of get things going. And so I realized that there were undergrads, whether they be freshmen or other, they just had this energy, and I would get them out there in front of people and things would start happening. And so they had no titles. They just would, do some flyering. The energy itself was the example. Like they literally took it to another level. And so,
Yeah, I think that's a really good example of kind of leaders model the energy that they want others to have, right? Last night I put a call out on social media for people to give me examples, because I wanted to not just talk about myself in this and give me examples of where they've seen people lead from places, maybe unexpected places. And I'll say I'm glad I'm back on Facebook, because Facebook was the winner. They were the ones that really rolled in with a lot of examples.
Let me tell you.
But in so many cases, like there was one person who said, just like being a role model and picking up trash in your community can inspire others to pick up trash in their communities, right? And all of them came back to this idea of you exhibiting the behavior that you want to see others pick up, and being that role model, that is leadership.
Yes.
Right? It is absolutely
Of
leadership.
course.
And it's not, so many people think of leaders as, I'm going to tell you to do these things, but I'm not necessarily going to do them myself. Right? That's below me. But I think it's so important for us to model the behavior that we want, whether we're a leader of a huge organization or somebody sort of down in the cogs of that organization. If you want people to start behaving differently, influencing them towards a common behavior, right? That's what we're talking about with leadership. You have to model that yourself.
Agreed. I couldn't agree more. I guess I could, but I agree. There are times where I try to amplify that, even in the workplace, outside of the workplace, but more outside of the workplace, that I've noticed that I do it at the workplace. But when I get home, I'm like, I just told you to stop yelling, yet I am yelling at you to stop yelling. It's interesting. Yeah,
it's a little bit of an aside, but do you sometimes find that when we have these leadership toolkits that we use all the time at work, right? That you're so exhausted by doing a lot of that stuff that when you get home, you just forget all about them.
Oh my gosh. Right. Jason and I, my husband, Jason, we just had this conversation last night. I was talking about something and we immediately went into like, coaching mode, but we can't coach each other because it got to the point where we're just like, what are you talking? So we have this great synergy where the tool can work. We know how it's supposed to be there, but I was like, I don't want you to tell me the answer. Just coach me. I can't coach you. We can't be coached. Thank you for the feedback. And it was just very much.
Yeah, absolutely. I had in a previous relationship that I had, at one point she said to me, don't use that framework on me. Right. Because I was practicing those things. So it's really hard to sort of not use all of these things that we learn as leaders in
it can definitely be applied in other places though.
So kind of getting back to this idea of leading from where you are, I think one of the things that a lot of the staff on my team that they don't have leadership titles, they struggle with is like being given the opportunity to do these things. They might have this great idea to fill a gap, but they feel maybe like they're a little squelched in doing that. And what I always tell them is do so well at your current job, that your current responsibilities, that I'm going to look at you and say, I think you're going to get bored if I don't give you more opportunities. And so if I feel like you have this capacity
to do more,
then when you come to me and say, hey, I have this great idea, can I run with it? I'm going to say, absolutely, right? You're doing everything you need to do. You're not behind on your things. So that in some ways that creates this opportunity for leadership when you're really knocking your current job out of the park.
Yeah, I also encourage people to use the power of their voice and to build the skills of being an excellent storyteller. That definitely allows you to lead from any place. The ability to communicate and get your ideas out there, but make them memorable and make them stick. If you tell the right story to the right person, immediately you become the person that they're going to go to get things fixed, or to at least connect them to the right people.
Yeah, it is amazing to see how you have all these people who are like expert in whatever subject matter they have, but they can't tell a story and they can't connect it to other people. Nobody wants to follow somebody that they don't feel connected to. And the stories have that really amazing way of doing that. I think another thing that I think helps you when you're trying to lead from where you are is what I call the presumption of yes.
Okay, tell me more about this.
And for me, that is there's often a lot of negativity when, you know, maybe this is something that's specific to the IT community that we are in, but when somebody comes to us and says, hey, we have this need, can we do this? Okay. The IT community can sometimes be,
oh, the security,
it's too risky, it's too but when you have that presumption of yes, when people see you as somebody who really is interested in making solutions that meet their current needs, it may not be the thing that they come and ask for, but at least you can say, yeah, let's figure that out, right? Let's figure out what we need to do to make that happen. There might be a cost involved with it. There might be, some sort of timing issue, but just being somebody who people think about as they're going to get something done, that's going to allow you to lead as well.
Agreed. So when I think about this idea also about leading from where you are, I go back to kind of my early parts of my career and some of the things that I did that may be helpful for other people. And one of those things were goal setting. And of course, we've all talked about goal setting, how important that is. But I would do these quarterly updates to my resume as well as my CV at the time. In grad school times, so that I made sure that all the things, like I wasn't looking for a job, but every 3 months I would, go and update. What have I done? What have I accomplished? It wasn't about a job description, but rather I knocked this project out of the water. I want to make sure it's documented so that I know what I'm doing. And I would use those quarterly resume updates to make sure that they were aligning to the goals of what I needed to do. And if I got to the point where, I didn't have anything to update, I was like, was I just doing my job or was I working on something bigger? And I'm just working on, I had nothing to update this quarter. Like this is the same resume that it was 3 months ago. I go, maybe I need to get a new job. No, but again, I was like, what bigger things can I be working on?
Right. Absolutely. I think if I'm looking at my own career and some examples from where I've had an opportunity to lead or kind of jumped into an opportunity to lead from where I was. One of the things in my personal life, and I know your family was involved in scouting.
Yep, and I was also a Girl Scout leader, but please tell your story.
So I was a Boy Scout leader. And, my son had joined Boy Scouts. I wasn't super thrilled with the idea when he first joined for a variety of reasons, but ended up getting very engaged in it. And I, got my leader shirt and all that kind of stuff. But I was sort of there. I wasn't one of the leaders of the leaders. I was just there in a supporting role. And then the Cubmaster of Pack 98 here in Champaign had some personal issues and he wasn't able to continue. And they looked to me and said, would you like to do this? We think you'd be really good at this. And I'm like, I don't really, this is going to sound terrible, but I'm not like great with kids. Like I'm much better with adults. And I'm like, do you really think I can do this? And I had some insecurity around it. And they said, yeah, we think you can do this. All you really need to do is go up there and sort of be out there, be the extrovert that you are, not be afraid to make a fool of yourself up there in front of the children, and just do that. And I said, okay, I can do that, right? And so this was this place where there was a need, like a community came to me and said, we'd like you to do this. I think we ignore those calls sometimes, and they can be really, and it turned out to be like so incredibly valuable to me. I loved the job. It made me emotional to sort of leave the job when my son ended up in Boy Scouts. So that's one example.
But I think that also the person asking you that question, I see so much leadership in that as well. Being able to identify when there is just making that ask was leadership in itself. And sometimes we don't do that enough, where we don't identify and bring up other people and put them into those spaces. Like, you'd be great. You should apply for this job. Or I would really appreciate if you could take on this volunteer task. So making that ask is also how people can lead from wherever they are. Yeah.
And volunteering for those kind of things, there's stretches for you. And I think that's so important as an emerging leader, as a growing leader, is to do things that you're uncomfortable with. And one example for me was several years ago when the campus was looking at transitioning away from Skype for Business as our phone system. They wanted to have a stakeholder group look at the set of possible options and make a recommendation. And they asked me to chair that. And it was the first time that I had led a group that wasn't just IT professionals. It was stakeholders from across campus. And I will admit, like, there was a lot of trepidation in me to do that, because there were faculty, there were, a few staff members that I didn't have the relationships with them that I could have, or that I needed, right? And I was like, how do I lead people that I don't know, right? And that I don't know what their lives are like. And but that was this stretch opportunity to do that. And I did fine. I was able to lead them. We came up with a recommendation. It turned into what the campus did, and it was kind of this gold star on my time here that I led this group through that. But it was, if I hadn't been willing to take that stretch and go, I can lead people that aren't IT professionals. I can learn, I can listen, I can be more of a facilitator than a teller, and it worked out just fine.
Yeah, I'll say that one of the times for me where I stretched is I took a role that was very administrative. So I've been in IT for multiple years, but there was no technical piece aside from in the title. It said IT strategic planning. I was like, of course, this for me. I didn't necessarily look for this job, but someone went, I think you'd be great for this. I looked at the job description. I was like, why? It was all about talking and communicating to IT people, but not actually doing IT work. But I was so hesitant to do that, because I said, how can I go back to leading people in IT if I don't do IT? But it was a great opportunity for me to think about how I can do so much more than just technology stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the last piece of advice that I would give to somebody who's thinking about leadership and trying to figure out how to lead from where they are is the fact that relationships are so incredibly important to this. Because if we go back to our definition of leadership being influencing a group of people in a particular direction or towards a common goal, those people have to trust you. And if you don't have that trust, they're gonna be like, why in the world should we take Candice's idea? We don't even know her.
Can you speak a little bit more about how you built that trust so that you have those relationships?
So I want to talk a little bit about a framework that I learned going through one of the Moore Associates leadership programs. And they talk about the 4 I's. And the 4 I's are initiate, inquire, invest, and influence, right?
Congratulations.
And so let me talk about those a little bit. The initiate is just going up and introducing yourself to somebody new. And then the inquire part is learn about them, right? And let them tell you about themselves, right? People love talking about themselves, right? And so when you're starting to build a relationship, it's so much more important for you to ask questions of them and allow them to talk about themselves, because that they're going to feel more connected to you because you listened than if you talk about yourself and force them into that listening position, right? It should be maybe 50-50 ideally, but listen more. So that's the inquire part. Then the invest is keep going back to that person, right? Keep checking in with them, making sure that you have regular points of contact with them. And so that they feel like you are continuing to learn about them, that you care about them. And it's not like you don't care about them, right? It's one of the things that I always struggle with in some of these frameworks is they feel a little bit mercenary, right? They feel slightly manipulative, but you're doing this because it's the right thing to do, right? Building relationships is part of being human, right? It's so fulfilling to get to know people and connect with them and have that strong connection with them, that what I call the collateral benefit to doing all of this work is the fourth eye, and that's influence. And so when you have this relationship, you've built that trust, they know that you have their best interest in mind. When you want to get them to move in a certain direction, you're much more likely to get them to go that way because they trust you.
Yeah, so it's definitely not manipulation. Manipulation has a negative connotation of you're trying to gain something on the other person, but when you invest in the four eyes, it can be a win-win situation.
Yeah, I think if I look back at my career, when I first became the IT director at Illinois Extension, I think in episode 1 we talked about my going from being a developer to running the organization like overnight. And one of the first things I did was I went around to every single member of that leadership team and just introduced myself and talked to them. And listened to them and helped and got to understand what their needs were, what their aspirations were, so that when it came time for me to say, hey, I think we should do this with IT in the organization, and this is how it aligns with what you want and what you want and what you want, they're much more likely to say yes to that.
Definitely. I mirror some of the first times when I had my first career ever at Vet Med and talking to all of the deans, which are, no longer here, but they come like the community and the relationships that you built. That person knows this other person and they can speak on your behalf. I was walking into Cranard and they go, Dr. such and such. And they're like, Candice, oh, you need to listen to exactly what Candice, let me come introduce you to such and such. Because again, built up that relationship, built up that trust that your name speaks and holds. Those relationships
are so important. And if you look at, I think this especially happens in higher ed, a new leader comes in and they go on their listening tour. That listening tour, I think people sort of think of it as this negative thing, that it's a delay in our progress, but it is so important because that's when those relationships are being built. The mutual understanding is being built. You don't want it to go on forever, right? You need to start taking action and continue to build relationships at the same time. But the perfect way of having an initiative fail in higher ed is to come in and tell everybody what to do, right? There's this consensus building, there's this relationship building phase that has to happen, and it's because you build that strong trust with each other.
Yeah. So, Chris, it's time for us to get real, as you would say, and talk about our vulnerabilities. So, where do we still struggle in this topic about leading from where you are?
So for me, I think it is absolutely the first I of the four I's, and that is initiate. Like, I will get up in front of a room of 500 people and give a presentation, be perfectly comfortable. My heart rate won't even be up. But you put me in that same room of 500 people and have me walk around and have to introduce myself, and I'm like an anxious ball of like energy because I don't do that well. Like I have people find that surprising about me, that I'm this extrovert, that I would be perfectly capable of doing that. That is my worst nightmare. And sort of coming into that space where I don't know people. You'll see me scanning the crowd for a familiar face.
Who do I know?
Who is talking to somebody who I don't know. So I can go in and make that contact with the person I know, and then I can go, oh, do you know Candice? And then we can have that connection that way. And then you can't shut me up, right? You can't, I'm fine after that, but there's something about that first step that still creates a lot of anxiety in me.
Completely opposite. I like randomly talking to strangers about whatever. But I'm just like, oh, I don't know that person. Let me go. And I immediately go to the person I have never met before to go.
Yeah. It's my wife a lot. She's the type of person that can talk to anybody, and she'll start talking to people in the grocery store or whatever. I'm like, what are you doing?
And they go, do you know this person? Never met ever before. Now we're besties.
Exactly. So Candice, what do you struggle with?
Where do I still struggle with from leading from where you are? I think the piece of listening more. So what I mean by this is that I know that everybody can have things to contribute, and I hear that idea and I go, yep, good, great, and I keep moving, but sometimes they're not finished elaborating. So allowing them to really take ownership of it, sometimes I go, oh, thank you for that, and move off or go on to the next thing. So I need to do a much better job of listening more, because I'm thinking, yes, they gave their input. Cool. I'm allowing them to do that. But if I listen more, they want to tell me something else. And so just taking a step back and listening to allow them to explore it in more direction. They didn't want my yes. They didn't want my blessing. They just wanted to say their piece and then keep moving.
So how do you like manage yourself? Like what are the logistics of doing that?
What are the logistics of managing myself? So I usually play a lot of little internal games with myself. So I, in my head, say, Candice, how are you going to react to this? Candice, how are you going to listen more? Sometimes I count to myself. I'm trying to make eye contact. So I'm doing lots of internal games that help me do those things. So I have done this multiple times. Somebody asks a question. I'm listening to the question. I'm nodding my head. I am trying to repeat back instead of what I want to say, what they just said to me. So I'm focusing on them. But yeah, that's how I try to listen more, because in my head, I'm already like, what is Chris about to say? No, don't think about that.
Well, they talk about like good listeners aren't formulating their answer while they're listening. But I think people like us, and I think we're similar in this way, like our brains don't do well when there's a single input. Like we need multiple inputs. And so figuring out how to distract the second input need while you're actually listening in a way that doesn't get in the way of you listening is really critical. Yeah.
We'll write a paper on it. That'll be great.
Yeah. So maybe we can go on tour trying to teach people like us how to distract yourself.
It's like, look at this new trick I learned.
Yeah. There's something similar. A colleague of mine told me when I was trying to train myself not to jump too quickly when, you're in a big meeting and the leader of the meeting says, what does everybody think? Like I'm always the first person to, and she told me, and this is like it's an easy trick, is just put your hand under the table and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like not
right, but
loud, but just count to 5. Give that space in the room, and so like those little management techniques make a big difference.
Yeah, thanks for the little tricks. Hopefully, it's helpful for everyone listening.
Yeah. As we wrap things up today, Candice, we've given a lot of examples of how people can lead from where they are, and I want to end by sort of giving credit to our community that just went through a major IT incident.
Yes.
And it was, to me, was like this resounding example of everybody leading from where they are. For those of you who are listening or watching, earlier this year, you probably saw that there was a big incident with the software company CrowdStrike that just wiped out machines across the country, across the world. Global incident. We had 12,000 machines on our campus that were completely bricked, could not be used, unusable. And I woke up to an email from our head of the security center at 5 a.m. in the morning saying, this is happening. This is likely going to impact everything. Basically, this is an all hands on deck kind of. And it was amazing to see how everybody throughout the entire organization led almost perfectly. The senior leadership were up there. They were making decisive, they were taking decisive action. They were communicating out well. People who were head of IT and units were sort of rallying their teams to say, hey, this is number one priority. We have to get these machines back up and running. And then there were people throughout the entire organization that were just pitching in. Like, not a single person complained for 2 weeks of trying to remedy this whole thing. Nobody complained. Everyone just leaned into this and were providing service and information that was needed when it was needed. And it was just this, I think, like a really great example of everybody being a leader in the moment.
That collaborative leadership was empowering. I saw units helping other units and offering for all these things. So yeah, that's a great example. A great way to land on a good note. On a good note.
All right. We will see you all at the next episode.
Thank you, everyone.